what are the relations? What's the relationship between the Romani people and the Banjaras? That's an interesting question. So let's talk about, first of all, who are the Romani people and then who are the Banjara people, right? Let's talk about the Banjaras first. So the Banjaras are a nomadic community, or a set of nomadic communities in that live in India today. Now, they generally seem to be associated with places like northern and western India, Rajasthan, Gujarat, and they're called by different names in different places, but overall they are called Banjaras. Right? They are nomadic people. They don't live in one place. They move from place to place and that sort of thing. Uh, and what's the origin? There seem to be various theories of origins of the Banjaras. One of the stories that one hears is that some of these Banjara people are the descendants of the soldiers of various Rajput kings who fought the Turks and lost, and refused to surrender and went out and lived in the forests. People like um, Maharana Pratap, Rana Kumbha, etc. One hears that their soldiers never ever surrendered. They went and lived in the forest, and their descendants still live a nomadic life. Um, and maybe so that's one origin story, and I'm sure there is a lot of truth behind that. I'm sure it doesn't apply to all Banjara people, but many of them, and maybe some other people always lived nomadically. I'm not really sure. I've not really studied and done the research into their origins. I'm not sure Indian historians have done proper research about this, but yes, it's a nomadic community, and they typically are employed, uh, not employed, but their profession generally is uh, singing, dancing, all of that. They do folk singing and all, and they have kept lots of folk tunes, etc., alive through their music, and so on. And so that's the Banjaras. And the Romani people are Indian origin people who are nomadic people in Europe, and they have faced persecution and horrible oppression for the past 1000 years. Now, what's the origin of the Romani people? They are also called Gypsies. So, in the past, in Europe, it was believed in Europe that these people were of Egyptian origins. So, they were called Egyptians and eventually called Gypsies. But these people, they call themselves either Romani or Sinti. Yeah? And there are other names applied to them: Kale, Kalderash, and so on. Um, so the origin, these people, they speak in a language that is very closely related to Gujarati, Rajasthani, and Punjabi. Northern and Western Indian languages, very closely related to these languages. I think these three languages, Gujarati, Rajasthani, Punjabi, are the three closest languages today to the Romani language. So, how did these people end up in Europe? So, there are multiple theories to that as well. Dr. Ian Hancock is the first Romani person ever to get a PhD. Okay, so today the Romani people, they have European names mostly, and they have adopted various language, various religions just to survive. So most of them in Europe would be Christians today, and the ones who live in other countries like Turkey, they would be Muslims today. Some Romani people live in Egypt. They are Muslims there. Many Romani people live in Turkey today. About Probably about 5% at least of Turkey's population could be of Romani origin, and they're all Muslims. Okay, they all practice Islam, and in Europe, most of them are Christians. Many of them are kind of perhaps reverting to some form of dharmic practice and so on. But yeah, at least nominally, most of them practice these other religions. Uh, so what's the origin story? And the Romani people have been horribly persecuted in Europe. There are in the past, places like Germany and other countries, where if you were Romani, you would just be automatically sentenced to death. So lots of Romanis were just killed just for existing, for being Romani. Many of them were enslaved for generations, for centuries, and even today they are like second-class citizens in most European countries. They are still despised They are not allowed to settle in cities, and they are made to exist on the fringes of society. Many of them don't have proper documentation, which means they are essentially stateless. Even today, they are treated with a tremendous amount of racism, and uh, they are some of the most brilliant people in Europe today. Many of the top footballers in Europe are of Romani origin. Eric Cantona, one of the greatest French footballers, one of the legends of Manchester United, Eric Cantona, who is today an actor now. You want to see what it looks like? Let's take a look at Eric Cantona, one of the absolute legends of football. He is of Romani origin. Let us go here. Eric Cantona. So that is Eric Cantona, and he was one of the great French footballers and Manchester United footballers, one of the absolute greats and a bad boy of football. Who else do we have? Pirlo. Pirlo, yes, Romani. I can give you so many. Okay, let's just see Romani footballers. Romani football players. Here we have it. So many. Cantona, George Hagi, Quaresma, Christos Stoichkov, Pirlo, possibly Ronaldo. I'm not sure. Uh, so many. I can give you examples. Andrea Pirlo, obviously. Who else do we have? Quaresma is one of the greats. I believe Michael Ballack, Milan Baros, yes. Michael Ballack of Germany. Zlatan Ibrahimovic is said to be of Romani origin. And who else do we have? Romani footballers. There's so many names here. Yeah, so I'll not go into all the details, but you get the point. And when it comes to people from other fields, some of the greatest musicians of all time in Europe are of Romani origin. Django Reinhardt, Gypsy Jazz. Django. You know what Django actually meant? It meant Jago, wake up. Django Reinhardt. Have you heard of Led Zeppelin? Led Zeppelin, right? I think some of you may know about Led Zeppelin. Their lead singer, Robert Plant, the guy who looks like a Viking, his mother was Gypsy, Romani, and so on. So that's who the Romani people are. Now, their origin is, I'll tell you what the origin story most likely is. Dr. Ian Hancock says that they are of Rajput origin. So when people like the Ghoris and Ghaznavis and the Turks, they attacked India, they took back millions of Indians as slaves. Okay. Many of these Indians who were taken as slaves died in the Hindu Kush mountains. That's why the mountains are called the Hindu Kush mountains, the killer of Hindus. And the rest who survived ended up in the slave bazaars of Samarkand and Bukhara, etc. And maybe at some point in time they took too many slaves, and they didn't want to execute them and create a bloodbath in those places. In India, it was fine. So maybe they just took a whole bunch of people and said, "Get the hell out of here! But you're not allowed to go back to India. Go west." And maybe that was the origin of the Romani people. We're not quite sure how it began, but it most likely originated in the slave bazaars of Samarkand and Bukhara and in the Turkic and Arabic world. Maybe there was a surplus of slaves taken from India, and the surplus slaves were just told to push off, but westwards, not back to India. And probably that is the origin of the Romani people. So the Romani and Banjara aren't related. The relation is that they are both of Indian origin, obviously, right? But many of the Romani people today in Europe, some of them look kind of European because some of them have intermarried at some point in time, some of their ancestors. Some of them look very Indian, some of them look very, very European. Most of them look more Indian than European. So that's the deal with the Romani people.